It's time to get the latest draft intel from one of the best in the gosh darn business, baby. Let's frickin' roll. It's a Wednesday. Boy Green Daily starts now. Zoinks! But it is unequivocally the Super Bowl for New York Jet fans. Field Yates, baby. Field gosh darn Yates. Let's bring him on the show. Come on, people. Connor Rogers is joining the show. What's up, Connor? But Trevor gosh darn Sikkema, baby. For me, personally, my favorite New York Jet of all time.
Wow, it's great to be on. What an intro that was right there.
Paul, nobody does an intro like you, man.
Paul, you give the best intro of literally any podcast that I've ever been.
I'm gonna lose my gosh darn bananas. A friggin' annual tradition here, baby. One of the best. His name is Trevor Sikkema, the styling, profiling, limousine riding, jet flying, kid stealing, wheeling and dealing son of a gun from Pro Football Focus. That is gosh darn Trevor Sikkema, baby. What's up, Trevor?
Paul, it's so good to be with you, my friend. Very exciting part of the year. And like you said, almost a yearly tradition at this point, getting to hop on the show, talk some New York Jets with you, my friend. So I appreciate you having me on once again.
Yeah, so I told you, pre-post, pre-production, whatever you want to call it, that we all saw you, that handsome Goldilocks on the NFL Network, the Tube, and doing all that stuff. Trevor, how was that? How was that, brother?
Dude, that was a blast. People might not realize this. When you cover the combine as media, you're not actually in the stadium. Like a lot of like Radio Row and all the podium sessions and everything like that happens at the convention center, which is right down the road. It's not very far. It's all very close in Indianapolis, but you spend most of your time in that convention center, and there's not a lot of actual media passes that get you into the stadium. Now they've kind of done it a little bit more than other years, but all that to say, doing that live hit for NFL Network was the first time that I'd ever been in the stadium on Combine Week. So it was really cool. Obviously, I watched that a lot growing up. I've watched the Combine since I was, 12 years old. So it was very cool getting to be in that stadium. I feel very blessed to be able to do it. So it was a lot of fun.
What Combine number was that for you, Trevor?
This was 7. So it would be 8, but I missed because of either the COVID year or the year after when they were kind of, like in and out about like not giving as many credentials, whatever. So this was 7 for me, but it could have been 8. This is my 8th year actually working full time in the industry.
Okay, well, 7th or 8th time is the charm. I will crochet that on my next pillow for my couch brother, but that is friggin' phenomenal. I love it. And by the way, I didn't know that, so I'm hoping to, I'm kind of Moby Dick hunting right now with my harpoon. I'm ready to get the first NFL Combine, kind of check that one off the proverbial bucket list. So in due time, and then we'll do this in person, Trevor. That'll
dude.
be a lot of fun.
Next year, I'm manifesting. Next year, we'll do a show in person.
Okay, you said it. So let's do it, baby. But first, since you're at the Combine, getting all kinds of intel, they were like, "Oh, Trevor Sikkema." You looked at the list. Oh yeah, you're in. They bring in the statement. Spill some tea, baby. What were we hearing? People are in the chatty mood when we get to Indianapolis. That's what I hear. Do I hear correctly?
No,
or was there some tea spilled?
Yeah, you absolutely do. The Combine is my favorite event that we have during the NFL draft calendar, not just because it's cool to see the athletic tests and get to meet some of these players a little bit at their podium and all that good stuff, but teams, like you said, they love to talk when they get to Indianapolis. A lot of what Indianapolis is, and Brett Coleman is really big on YouTube, really big media personality. Like he said this as well. I think this was his first Combine this year. He's like, I had no idea what the Combine was. And yes, there's the things that you do during the day, but the main part of the Combine is going out to these different bars and restaurants and seeing your favorite NFL insider or media member or somebody who works for a team or like an assistant GM or a scout or something, and just, sharing a cold one with them or getting some dinner with them or whatever. And when you do that, of course, you're sitting at the table and you can talk about stuff, hey, who you guys looking at? Who you like in this class? All that kinds of stuff. And so that turns into more constructive conversations about what teams might be doing. And honestly, I would say rumors that dominated the conversation were all about what's going to happen at the very top of the draft and what's going to happen with these quarterbacks. Yeah, anytime you have a really good quarterback class, and shoot, even on years that you don't, right? Remember the Malik Willis, Desmond Ridder, Sam Howell year? It was like we had one quarterback go in the first round that year, and it was Kenny Pickett. And the next two came off the board in the third round. And yet when we were at the combine and leading up to the draft, what were we hearing? Oh, Kenny could go number 10 overall. Malik could go as high as number 2. So no matter what, there's always this quarterback craze. But this year, it actually warrants the hype. I think we're going to match the amount of quarterbacks that we had in the 2021 first round, which was with Zach Wilson, with Trevor Lawrence, with Justin Fields, with Mac Jones, and with Trey Lance. So I think we're getting 5 quarterbacks, and it's just going to be a desperation of which teams are going to move up. And I think that was what really, really was swirling around the rumor mill, if you will, is what's Washington going to do at number 2? Are they going to trade back? Are they going to trade up? I heard a little bit of them try to get up to number 1 to go get Caleb Williams. New England at number 3, they're not necessarily locked into a quarterback. Maybe they could be the team to trade back with a Minnesota, a Las Vegas Raiders, a Denver Broncos, something, and so that to me was the strong parts of the rumors and conversations that we were having is just trying to answer the question, what do these teams think of this quarterback class? Are they going to be desperate enough after free agency to give up a lot to try to go up to get one of these guys?
Well, I do appreciate you bringing up that 2021 draft with all those quarterbacks. That's one of my favorites for Jets and Zach Wilson. So thank you for that, Trevor. I really
sorry I had to do it.
That's okay. A quick detour though. What is, because again, you are my Yoda. I am just your young Padawan as I'm learning here on the Combine secrets. What's the proper etiquette? All right. So you're at all these restaurants. Everyone is centrally gathered, media, teams, coaches, general managers, everything in a central location. When you're out at a restaurant, insert generic St. Elmo's here, and I see, Robert Saleh. You'd never see him because he never goes to Combine, but like Robert Saleh or a coach or something in the restaurant, and you like come up to like get a cold one or something. Like, how does those interactions work? Is there certain taboo, like, hey, you don't come and talk to certain people or these people? How does all that work? What are the inner workings of the social scene at the Combine?
Essentially, you just don't want to be rude, right? And like, if it's kind of different, if they're sitting at a table with people at a restaurant, you're not walking up to them. You letting them eat, you're letting them hang out with whoever they're hanging out with. But a lot of times, people have a lot of fun in Indianapolis. They stay up way later than they should. So normally, like whether it's 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, a little past midnight, whatever it is, sometimes people go out to eat with their friends, and then you'll go out to one of the bars afterwards, because there's a lot of bars that are near where a lot of the hotels are. And so then, if you see like somebody like a scout that you recognize or a coach or whatever, and you see him in kind of a setting where it's clearly very casual, they're not having a private conversation. Sometimes you could just go up to them and say, "Hey, my name's Trevor Sikkema, work for Pro Football Focus. Really love what you guys are doing. Just wanted to introduce myself, and like say something about the season, say something about how things are going, whatever it is, and just kind of see like, and if they are very much like, hey, it's great to meet you. Like, how's Pro Football Focus going? And they kind of give it back to you a little bit. Then all of a sudden you get to start a conversation, get to hang out a little bit. But obviously, if you could tell, if they're like, hey, good to meet you, they're kind of short about it, whatever, then you just go, all right, okay, all right. We're respecting the time, we're respecting the space, but it is a cool networking event like that. So it's all about just kind of like judging the situation, making sure that you're not being rude to these guys. Cause honestly, it is really cool that they are out like this. And a lot of times the networking kind of comes from friends as well. Like Connor Rogers, my co-host at the NFL Stock Exchange, like Connor will be out and he's got some people that he knows. So if me and him are just grabbing a beer, he might go like, oh, that's my buddy. Let me introduce you. Or like, I could do that for somebody else. And so it's just a really big, cool networking event. And honestly, the motto is just like, be cool, man. Just be cool. Don't be rude, be cool. And you meet a lot of cool people in Indianapolis.
Okay. Noted. Be cool. Okay. And wingman helps. Wingman. That's a key detail.
Yes.
Wingman helps.
Because there are a lot of people who are trying to meet a lot of people in the NFL. And if you have somebody that they already know that can introduce you, it always helps. It always helps.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I know a guy. Hey, this guy I know. He's part of the inner circle. Okay, I like that. All right, well, one of the rumors I heard, and I'm going to be honest, it titillated me. I don't know if that's a word that's often said to you, Trevor, but it titillated me. Okay, you guys said it on the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. Okay, come on, I'm a company man. I help out the brand, baby. That's what I do. But in there, you guys talked about the Tennessee Titans, and forever, you guys had just pounded the beef. Hey, they're going offensive line, and I, as a Jet fan, every time I watch them, I'm like, son of a gosh darn gun, that pisses me off. I'm like, damn it, that's just a cup of suck. So minimum that like the Jets are getting the second best offensive lineman, and that's if the Chargers don't do it or someone else earlier. So that was always frustrating. And then you guys started dancing. You started going, well, I heard something from Rand Carthon. Oh, I heard something from Brian Callahan. I'm like, sign me up. So Trevor, are you seriously buying the chutzpah that appears to be out there? That the Titans are like, hey, I don't know why you guys are saying offensive line. We love wide receivers. And I'm like, phenomenal. I hope you like every wide receiver on the planet. That is good news, good business for the New York Jets. So are you seriously buying those whispers that are out there, or is it a smokescreen? Is it a bunch of fluff on a sandwich?
I think, that's what they said, and
Yeah.
the tenure is still young with Rand Carthon as the general manager, and certainly Brian Callahan as the head coach as well. So who knows? This could be all an elaborate, let's get them hot off the trail kind of a thing. We've been thinking offensive line all along. We're still thinking offensive line. But when I was next to Rand Carthon at his podium, he continuously brought up team speed, wanting to get more playmakers, wanting to get faster, wanting that offense to increase its potency, if you will. And they know that they have to do that up front. But here's the thing. Brian Callahan is now the head coach. He was the offensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals. Bill Callahan, his father, longtime NFL or offensive line coach in the NFL. He is now the offensive lineman. And Connor and I talked about this on our show, what you were referencing. I believe that this team thinks that just from Bill Callahan coming over and now coaching the offensive line, they're going to get better as a unit overall. So they might not feel like they have to take an offensive lineman at number 7. Because to your point, for the longest time, we just said the offensive line in Tennessee is such a problem that they have no choice but to go O-line in the top 10, whether that's offensive tackle 1, offensive tackle 2, whatever it is in this draft class. But from talking with Brian Callahan, from talking with Rand Carthon, it really does seem like those odds flip. And it's more likely that I would say they take a wide receiver. Like I look at Rome Odunze from Washington, and at this point, I almost wonder if Odunze's floor is 7. I don't know if he gets past number 7 overall. And then, to your point, bringing it around for Jets fans, if the Titans go wide receiver, well, the Falcons aren't going offensive line. They've already got their offensive line figured out. The Bears, we don't think are going to go offensive line. They draft Darnell Wright. They've got Tevin Jenkins. Braxton Jones is playing well. Like, sure, they might want to add a guy on the interior, but I think that they're fine. They're not using number 9 on that. And then you got the Jets sitting there at number 10. So really, from what I learned in Indianapolis, if the Jets still want an offensive lineman, an offensive tackle, first and foremost, they're really going to have the opportunity to get a good one. Yeah, I know fans are looking at that saying, oh, well, Joe Alt, we're just praying that Joe Alt falls to us. And Joe Alt's a phenomenal prospect. I know that they would love him. But even if, let's say, the Chargers draft Joe Alt somewhere at 5, maybe trade down a little bit, maybe the Giants take him at 6. We saw at the combine, certainly with the on-the-field drills and the athletic testing, Talise Fuaga, Troy Fontenot, Olu Fashanu, like one of those guys has to be available for them at number 10. They're just numerically, there aren't enough teams who want offensive linemen before number 10. So you're getting at least one of those players now. And I think any of those 4 names that I mentioned are starting caliber players who are starting in their rookie season next year for New York.
All right. Well, that sounds good to me, everybody. And again, this is Trevor freaking Sikkema of Pro Football Focus. We got 300 plus people in here. Make sure you guys like the video, hit subscribe down below. We love it, baby. This is fantastic. But you said, maybe Joe Alt goes earlier, but what if he doesn't? Trevor Sikkema on the juicy 3-round mock draft that's out. You got to pay the bills and put some gold plates on those rims for your car, pal. Those are the 3-round mock that everybody enjoys. In there, you guys talked about Joe Alt, maybe a little slip and slide down the board. Now, in that conversation, Connor kind of said, hey, we can't just have Joe Alt fall to 10. That's not realistic. But is it? Because when you start doing the number counting game of who could take it, it seems like the names on the list are probably Chargers at 5 and Titans at 7. Now, maybe someone can move up, of course, but is there a path where the Jets are at 10th overall and they take Joe Alt out of Notre Dame, or is that just a bunch of hooey?
I would still say that the odds are low that Joe Alt would make it to 10. But I will just say that they're higher than I thought they would have been a week ago, right? And that's really strange to say because Joe Alt actually had a great combine. Like he had a great
right.
on-field. He tested very well athletically for his size. He measured in well enough. The on-field drills looked great. So Joe Alt checked every single box. But to me, I think there's a higher chance that he could be available at 10 just because we do see so many of these teams starving for quarterbacks and wide receivers. And the big talk of the town, it felt like, was JJ McCarthy, it feels like, is going in the top 10 at this point. So if you throw him and the other 3 quarterbacks in there, even if you think Drake May is going to slide a little bit, Drake May is, going to get picked in the top 10 as well. I'd be shocked if he didn't. So you got 4 quarterbacks and you got 3 wide receivers who are going in the first round. In the top 10. You got Marvin Harrison Jr., you got Romo Dunze, and you got Malik Neighbors. That's 7 picks. You only need 2 other selections to not be Joe Alt, and then he falls to 10. So that's like, it is way more realistic than it should be, because normally now I'll say this too, like I heard that the Cardinals very in on Joe Alt as well. DJ Humphries suffered an injury at the end of last year. His contract's kind of cuttable. He could not be back. They could end up, I just think he's in the conversation at number 4.
Interesting.
But of all the teams that, if the Patriots end up trading back from number 3, like let's say, I've seen this proposition before, Patriots trading back with the Atlanta Falcons at 8, Falcons move up, they get a quarterback, Patriots are sitting there at 8. They could very easily go offensive lineman at that point. So there are worlds that exist where I would certainly say pick 4 through 9. Joe Alt could certainly go. And like I said, I think it's more likely than not at this point. But the odds of him making it to 10, like I said at the top, higher than I thought they were a week ago. And that's nothing on what Joe Alt did. I thought he had a great week. But these teams, they want to get quarterbacks. They want to get wide receivers. And you're just now eliminating total spots that they have a chance for him to go off the board.
Hey, higher chances this week than last week. Sign me up, baby. I'm not greedy. That works for me. Get it from 1% to 2%. The percentage just doubled. So, hey, as far as I'm concerned, that works. Also, Trevor, for people that don't know, you're a Florida Gator, baby. So I have to ask you, because, I this is kind of sad for me. Ricky Pearsall, that was a popular Jets 3rd-round pick. Okay, this is great. Is that dream dead? Is that dream over now after the combine?
Yeah, it's probably dead. He tested so well. He had a great week in Mobile at the Senior Bowl as well. Practiced for 2 days. It was very, very productive, very impressive in those 2 days. So much so that he did not practice on the 3rd day, didn't play in the game, didn't feel like he needed to. Honestly, he didn't. So he comes to the combine, tests very, very well, not only in the explosive drills, but also the agility drills too. He was a high 80s, low 90th percentile athlete in basically every single spot, which you don't often see. So, yeah, he's not going to be available in 3rd round anymore. Honestly, I think about him as a target for the Carolina Panthers to start the 2nd round at 33. Like, that's the range that I'm talking about now with him. I mean, his tape's too good. He's too great of an all-around athlete. I think he's going to end up being an early 2nd round pick now.
Okay, that's right. That's somewhat depressing, but I appreciate the honesty, Trevor. That's good friends have to be honest with each other in these times.
True.
So 3rd round pick. The Jets have the 72 overall pick. Is it realistic that they can get a starting wide receiver at that point? Because I've heard that conversation out in the universe. Is that true? And if it is true, who are some names? Come on, Trevor. How do you solve 72 wide receiver, a position the Jets would like to address? Who are the names that Jet fans should familiarize themselves with that could fit that category?
Yeah, so I was on the Jets digital show when I was at Radio Row, and they had me do like a sort of a mock draft, but also they wanted me to pick, okay, who's the pick at number 10? Who's the pick in the 3rd round, and then like give like a wild card, whether it could be the 4th round pick or somebody that they might target in free agency. And the guy that I identified in the 3rd round that I would love for them to get is Jermaine Burton from Alabama. I think Burton is really, really underrated in this class. When I watch his tape, I go, this is a 2nd round player. Now he was at Georgia, and then he was at Alabama, and he plays very fiery. He plays with a lot of emotion. And I kind of love that about him. But some people have said, yeah, he loses his temper a little bit too easily. So maybe it's an attitude thing that teams are a little bit scared of. But to me, that just shows like a fiery, competitive player. And instead, you've got a guy who's lightning quick off the line of scrimmage, loves to go attack the ball vertically, but he's got the quickness, stop and start ability to be really effective in the slot as well. So Jermaine Burton from Alabama is somebody I like, who I think could be an option for them there at, what is it, 72? I think 72 is where
That's correct.
they pick in
Yep.
the third round. So I think he's an option there. Jamari Thrash, I think, could also be an option. More of a
Nice.
deep threat from Louisville, who showed that he could be more than just a deep threat player. But I think that's probably how you get him on the field early. Maybe I like Johnny Wilson from Florida State a lot. 6'6", almost 6'7", 240 pounds, runs really well, has good agility for a guy that is his size. He's just got to catch the football. Like, he's just got to, if he had stronger hands, if he had the hand strength of a player that you thought that you saw was 6'6", I mean, this guy would be a borderline, early second round pick, maybe even considered at the back end of the first round, but he just doesn't. He's got too many concentration drops. He's got too much, I guess, catch point issues, which sucks for a player who's that big, but I like him. I think he's intriguing there. Two other players that I'll shout out.
Sure. Yeah.
I wonder if Brennan Rice gets there, Jerry Rice's son. He's an
Sure.
interesting player because I think he's athletic. He just doesn't separate really well with that athleticism. I think you saw that in Mobile. Like, I thought he was going to be a better route runner and a better separator than he was at the Senior Bowl, but then he ended up being a much better contested catch player than I thought he was going to be. So super determined. Obviously, he's got the NFL Hall of Fame bloodlines to him. So he's somebody that I would shout out as another option. And then Malachi Corley is, I think, the big wild card in this class. You talk to some people, the Western Kentucky wide receiver, former cornerback, former running back, now wide receiver. He's played wide receiver full time for the last couple of years. When the ball gets in his hand, they use him in a lot of yards after catch situations, and he turns into a running back the second he catches the ball. And you love that. He got great contact balance, really good vision, can make people miss in the open field. When it comes to the nuances of playing wide receiver, he's still learning it. He's still learning different kinds of releases, how to get off press coverage, how to sell things with his body when it comes to his routes and creating that little subtle separation. He's still learning a lot of that stuff. But there's some people who watch Malachi Corley and say, this is the next Deebo Samuel. I'm not quite there, because for every Deebo Samuel, there's maybe a Laviska Shenault that people thought was kind of the same player that didn't really pan out as well with that running back wide receiver versatility. But he is somebody who, if he is there as an athlete, he's really intriguing as a yards after catch guy, a guy you can scheme up some touches for. So those are a handful of receivers that when I think about the third round could be available for the Jets to go grab.
Spicy. Okay, we just got a YouTube super chat, and this would be the inverse strategy. A lot of people say offensive tackle at 10, wide receiver in the third round. What about this? Shout out to Ron Weiss. Thank you very much, fella. Is it possible we get tackle in the third round if we take a Bowers or someone else at 10 after the free agent fills, if that makes any sense whatsoever? Is that possible?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's possible just because we've seen it happen in the NFL before, right? You get these second and third rounders, these day two offensive linemen who end up becoming these great starters. Now, often it happens on the interior, right? It's not often that you get a tackle who you could take in the third round who immediately becomes a starter for you. So it gets a little bit more tricky. You're certainly rolling the dice there. I wonder if a Blake Fisher from Notre Dame, who I think is a really talented player, he's just really young, didn't get a lot of hype. He was on the right side while Joe Alt was on the left, but I think he's a good tester. I think he's got a good framework that you could develop. He is somebody who I think could be available at the beginning part of the third round for them. Maybe you look at a guy like Christian Jones, because this is the big argument. It's not that it's impossible to get a starting caliber tackle in the third round. The big issue is the Jets probably need this player to start right away. And
Yes.
you have a much better chance at getting a instant starting caliber offensive lineman at number 10 than you do at number 72. You could pick an offensive tackle at 72 who I could tell you could develop into a starting offensive tackle, maybe late in year one, sometime in year two, midway through their rookie contract, whatever it is. But the Jets need an offensive lineman now. And so it's hard to say, oh yeah, this guy that you could pick in the third round, he'll be available to start a tackle right away, because there just aren't a lot of those guys. If you're looking for, if they are a starting caliber offensive tackle, guess what? They're probably going earlier because the NFL is going to want to draft those guys. But there are two players who I think come to mind specifically, who you might be able to get in the third round, who do have a lot of starting experience, who maybe could pan out for you in a perfect way like that. Christian Jones, the offensive tackle from Texas, is one of them. He has, I think 50 starts in his career. It's like 48,
Whoa.
49, 50
Okay.
starts in his Texas career. So this is a very seasoned and experienced offensive tackle. Now, a little bit limited as an athlete, but when he was at the Senior Bowl, he was playing really, really well. He very much impressed me on all those one-on-one drills and everything in practice. So really liked what I saw from him there. So that experience of a player, you're not going to start him and it's not going to be unfamiliar for him. He's not going to be this project dude. So maybe you can get him in the third round and start him there. And then the other one is Javon Foster from Missouri. Maybe he's more of a fourth-round pick because I think the Jets have, 2 fourth-round picks as well because they have
That's
Denver's
correct.
fourth-round pick.
Yep.
So
Mm-hmm.
you might be able to get a guy like Javon Foster who, again, multi-year starter in the SEC at Missouri. He's not the most athletic offensive tackle, and I think that's really going to hold him back from being drafted high, but he's got a ton of experience. He graded really, really well for us because he knows how to play the position. He's got a high IQ. So if you wanted to go with Ron's strategy here, that is where you would have to go. If you see like a Brock Bowers at number 10, or if Malik Neighbors makes it to number 10, and you just can't pass up those guys. Those are the two tackles, Javon Foster and Christian Jones, that I would gravitate towards for the Jets because you might be able to get something really surprising out of them in year one because of that experience.
Oh, very interesting. Okay, a couple of quickies before we get you out of here, Trevor. Let me ask you this. We always have, as a Jets fan, we have to be surprised or ready for the surprise factor. Like, I didn't have Will McDonald on my bingo card at 15th overall last year. If a surprise is going to happen for the Jets with the 10th overall pick, maybe they address offensive line in free agency or trade ahead of time, and then they're sitting there at 10. What is the surprise pick that gives us that same sort of Will McDonald reaction we got last year?
I mean, I don't know if Bowers is that big of a surprise at this point. Let me
Right.
just say, like, when Connor brought that on my radar a couple of weeks ago, he's like, "Hey, look out for Brock Bowers. Like, it could be an
Yeah.
option." I was like, "Whoa, what?" Like getting him at number 10 over the offensive line needs or the wide receiver needs or whatever, I think would be crazy. I do wonder if the answer to that question, though, is another edge rusher. Like, if they
Whoa.
have edge one on the board, would they, if they lose Bryce Huff in free agency, even though they
Uh-huh.
drafted Will McDonald for this exact situation, do they say to themselves, like, no, we still want a super deep edge rushing rotation? Like, do they go, no, we can't pass up on Dallas Turner's athleticism or, the type of productive pass rusher that Latu is or whatever? I'm just saying, you ask what could be a total surprise. It's either the Bowers pick or, honestly, if edge one is on the board, then they can't help themselves. Maybe that again.
Because I could understand they get to that point, right? And there's been a lot of mocks I've seen. I think someone shared the stat that there's never been a top 10 where a defensive player was not selected somewhere in that top 10. But DJ's, Daniel Jeremiah's recent mock draft had no one in there. And if you're the Jets at 10, you're like, well, we could get our first whack at any defender. That's my
Right.
fear.
Right.
As the Jets convince themselves of that. They're like, hey, we have basically the number one overall pick in the defensive draft. Here we
Right.
go.
Right.
So yeah, that's a fair warning there. That's a fair warning there, Trevor. Okay. 2 more before we get you out of here, and it's this.
Mm-hmm.
Trevor, from what I understand, I did some research ahead of this interview. Let me get my reading glass out. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, your team,
Yes.
won 7 games in 2019.
Yes.
Then the next year they won the Super Bowl.
That did happen. Yes.
The Jets won 7 games in 2023.
I see where you're going.
Hall of Fame quarterback. Or is there? I heard you, Trevor, doing the digital show with the Jets. Ethan Greenberg, Eric Allen. You were hyping up the machine, baby. The AFC East is up for grabs. I'm like, I was ready to run through a brick wall for you, brother. When you were spitting that gospel to the universe, I'm like, yeah, let's go. I'm ready for the season right now, brother. So again, the connections, the tantalizing things. Are you in, baby? Jets Super Bowl.
Well, here's the thing. I was super
Okay.
in on this team last year before Rodgers got hurt, right? Like, I thought that this team absolutely had. Now, I thought Miami was really strong going into the season. I think they're going to be strong again, but I'm not somebody who can trust Tua Tagovailoa week in and week out. So I feel as though that's what really holds me back from buying into Miami. It's not that they can't beat anybody any given week. They can. But certainly when you talk about late December, January, getting into the Super Bowl, do I think that Tua is going to have 6 great games in a row to get you to the Super Bowl? No. So I kind of like doubt how good Miami could be with their ceiling. Bills, I think that they're still at the tail end of that winning window, but they got to figure some stuff out in free agency. They've got offensive and defensive trenches that they've got to fix. Jets obviously have their things in the trenches as well, but this is a team that's absolutely right there in the conversation. And I believed in Aaron Rodgers to be able to take this team deep into a playoff run last year. And I think the same thing this year. It's another year with the defense, and defense is kind of cyclical. So they had a phenomenal year last year. Can they maintain that really high level? But the point that I will bring up, that's the biggest difference between, I mean, there were differences, but the biggest difference between the Bucs going from a 7-win team all the way to the Super Bowl is with this Jets team currently is Tampa's offensive line was great. Tampa's offensive line was fantastic. They had Tristan Wirfs, they had Ryan Jensen, they had Ali Marpet, they had Alex Kappa, they had Donovan Smith. And if Donovan Smith, for as much crap as he gets as a left tackle, or at least he did in Tampa, if he's your worst offensive lineman, you're doing good. Like the rest of your offensive line is pretty dang good. And that unit, those 5 guys were healthy and playing well the entire season. So they had a lot of continuity, a lot of chemistry. That's what it's going to take for the Jets to even get close to the realistic dream of them getting to a Super Bowl. Is they've got to be able to fix some stuff with the offensive line and free agency. They've got to really hit a home run on one guy who could at least step in and really help them out on that offensive line. But other than that, man, I think sure they need a wide receiver, but Garrett Wilson's fantastic. You can run a passing offense through him. Breece Hall is phenomenal when he's healthy out of the backfield. And that defense, well, they were one of the best, if not the best, in the NFL last season. So they got a lot of the pieces figured out. They just need a couple of more things here between now and when the season gets kicked off. And I think it's realistic that you could talk about this team at least fighting for that division title, fighting for a home playoff game. And then from there, anything can happen.
Was Mike Evans ever leaving? Be honest with me, Trevor.
No, he was never leaving. And like, look, he got paid a really great contract in Tampa Bay, but I tried to tell people, because you're not the only one. I had Bills fans, I had Chiefs fans, I had Texans fans. I had so many people who were like, Mike Evans. And I was like, look, just letting you guys know, it is a business and money does talk. Mike loves Tampa. Mike's family loves Tampa. He loves the organization. He's constantly giving back to the community. Like he's so ingrained in the Tampa Bay community that I knew his agents were kind of just trying to get as much money as possible, but I really never thought that Mike Evans was going to leave. He's pretty Tampa Bay through and through.
I will say it's cool. We don't get to see a lot of players spend their entire careers in one place, and that should probably guarantee. I mean, we'll see, of course, with the football world, but that should probably be guaranteed. And the last thing is this, Trevor, I didn't know this. Your future father-in-law is a Jets guy? He bleeds gangrene? So I think a lot of us Jet fans, the 350, 400 plus that are watching right now, are just going, one of us. We're getting a little bit of that. Is he, how has that affected your life? That's what I want to know. How is his Jets being shoved down your throat? Connor Rodgers, your buddy, is a Jets guy. You're getting a lot of Jets shoved in your life.
I do. And I'm rooting for him at this point. Obviously, like, you're a friend of mine at this point. So it's like, I got so many friends. Will Parks, like all these dudes that I know who are Jets fans. Like, I want the Jets to do well. For as fun as Jets fans are when it comes to draft season and being like on fire for who they're going to pick and all that kind of stuff. Like, I want you guys to have a good season here. All right. Let's culminate it into the winning column and let's have a little fun. But no, my future father-in-law, a diehard Jets fan, has been his whole life. I mean, he even has an 8 Aaron Rodgers jersey that he wore to the bar last year. There's a Jets bar here in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I live. Okay. And we went to that bar for the week 1 game. And obviously,
Monday Night Football. Yeah,
the air got sucked out of that building real quick. But we were there early because we wanted to get wings and food and some beer. And 30 minutes before the game, you got everybody. They rented out, the Jets fans rented out the entire downstairs area of this bar, and they're screaming, Jets, like 30 minutes before the game. We're not even in New York. And it's just like, I love that stuff. That stuff is so much fun for me. So I hope that everybody on that team is fully healthy, playing great football, because selfishly, I'd love to go hang out at that bar again. I'd love to go there for games and experience that, because that was a lot of fun. So yes, he is a diehard Jets fan, and I'm rooting for him because I want to be able to go to that bar again.
Yeah, that's awesome. I hope he's. I hope he was the the rallier, the fireman Ed in there rallying the troops in there for the JTS chance. That's freaking phenomenal. Trevor, I love doing this with you, and I'm going to be honest. I'll speak for a lot of Jet fans here. I know it's not exactly the same because Connor's a Jets fan and you're this Bucks guy, but I think of a lot of us when we see you have this success, NFL Network and lead draft analyst for Pro Football Focus, the face of the franchise, the number one pick, the tribal chief of the gosh darn organization. We all say like it's almost like we are accomplishing those things vicariously through you. We're seeing you up there. We're like, yeah, that's our guy. Look at that success he's having. We knew he was going to be doing these things. It's a rallying cry for us as Jet fans. I just want you to know that. So when you're killing it and doing things, we're like, yeah, doing a little fist bump action.
I appreciate it, man. It means a ton. I really do. I love Jets fans, not just because I'm marrying you to a family of Jets fans, but also because Jets fans have been so much fun. The NFL draft is something that I have followed and covered and been involved in since, man, the early days of me being in college, when I kind of thought that this might be something I want to do, doing the mock drafts and all that stuff. And obviously when you get into the NFL draft, Jets fans are a very passionate bunch. And so throughout my entire journey kind of in the sports industry, I have connected really well with Jets fans, and I love the passion that y'all bring. I've always loved a lot of my conversations that I have with the Jets fans. And so, you guys are great with me. You're one of my favorite fan bases in the NFL. There's no question about it. Always love interacting with Jets fans. And so, yeah, I appreciate you saying the kind words, man. It means a lot.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Like the video, hit subscribe on the way out, and make sure you follow at Tampa Bay Trey, baby. Let's keep that empire rolling. Get another pay raise at Pro Football Focus, baby. He's got a wedding coming up, and all these other things of officially indoctrinating himself with the Jets family. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Take care.